This is another one of Fitness Blender's Pilates workouts. In this routine, we're going to be going through 15 different Pilates exercises, and we're going to be primarily focusing on the abs, thighs, and glutes. Now, we haven't included a warm-up or a cool-down, so you want to make sure you get those in on your own. Now, as far as equipment goes, you're not going to need anything for this routine except for an optional exercise mat. Now go ahead and pause it here and go ahead and get a short warm-up in. Otherwise, if you've already gotten your warm-up done, we're going to start off with a Pilates imprint. We're going to be doing 10 repetitions of this one. So go ahead and lay flat on your back, feet flat against the ground with your knees roughly about a 90-degree angle. Now to do this one, you're going to be arching that back up really nice and high as you inhale, and then as you exhale, you're going to roll those hips in, pull that belly button down towards your spine, pressing that lower back down towards the ground, getting as much pressure on that lower back as you can before you arch that back up again, taking a nice deep breath in. So keep alternating back and forth, trying to exaggerate that motion as much as you can. Deep breath in, arching that back up, then exhale down, sucking that belly button in, rolling those hips in, and as you roll those hips in, you should feel the distance between the crest of your hip, the front of that hip bone, and the bottom of that rib cage actually get closer together, so you have less distance between those 2 points. So a lot of times if you put your thumb on the base of your rib cage and the fingertips on the edge of that crest of that hip, you can actually feel that distance change. So if you want to do that to give you a little bit of extra physical cue on what you're doing, go ahead and put those hands up there. Otherwise, leave those hands right there flat on the ground, just really focusing on trying to get as much range of motion with this as you can. Nice big high arch up as you inhale. Really pressing it up, trying to get that lower back off the ground as high as you can. Then exhale down, sucking that belly button into your spine, rolling those hips in, pressing as much pressure onto that lower back, into that mat as you can. Just keep it going, keep those lungs open, never holding your breath, always either inhaling or exhaling. Nice, slow, controlled motion. Just keep it going a little bit longer. We're almost done with this one. We have one more repetition to go. So arch that back up one more time, really nice and high. Deep breath in. Get a good exaggeration on that back. Then last one, you're going to exhale down, suck that belly button in, roll those hips in, plaster that lower back to that mat, and freeze it. You're going to hold it there for 15 seconds, breathing normally. Open those lungs up. Again, never hold your breath. Try to breathe as comfortably as normally as you can while still keeping those abdominal muscles contracted as tightly as you can the entire time. Got just a few seconds left. And go ahead and let those abdominal muscles relax if you want. Otherwise, keep them contracted as we get ready for this next exercise, which is going to be Pilates toe taps. We're going to do a beginner version on this one. So keep those abdominal muscles contracted or recontract them if they weren't already. Bring one leg up to a 90 degree on that knee, perpendicular from the ground, so 90 degree on that hip, and then slowly back down, and then the same thing with the other side. We're just going to alternate left and right, back and forth. The breathing on this one is inhale as you bring your leg up, exhale as you slowly drop it back down, then switch to the other leg, inhale that leg up, and exhale that leg down nice and slow. Like I said, just keep alternating back and forth. Really focus on keeping that knee frozen at a 90 degree angle, and making sure that you don't bring that knee in past your hip joint. So you want to bring that knee right on top of that hip joint, then slowly drop that leg back out. If you let that knee come over top of that hip joint, so it's coming over top of your stomach a little bit, then your abs get to rest a little bit. They don't have to work anywhere near as hard. So the further you keep that knee out away from that hip, the harder it's going to get. So make sure that you're not letting that knee come in past that hip joint. Just nice and slow, bring it up, 90 degree on that knee, 90 degree on that hip, then slowly back out. Now also, keep checking those abdominal muscles. You want to constantly be pulling that belly button down toward your spine, contracting those abdominal muscles, pressing that lower back into that mat, keeping those hips rolled in towards that rib cage, just like we were doing with that imprint, where at the bottom of that imprint, you had those hips rolled in, back flat against that mat. So just keep that position as tight as you can the entire time, alternating those feet back and forth. Now, if you need to, you might want to actually put your hands up on those thighs to make sure you're not bringing those legs in too far. As those legs start getting more and more tired, you're going to want to start cheating a little bit by bringing those knees over past that hip, over top of that stomach. So just make sure those abs are staying contracted. If they're starting to get tired, check yourself on those thighs. Make sure they're not coming in too close. Now we're almost done with this. We only have 2 more repetitions on each leg. So go back through and do a mental checklist of all those things you need to remember keeping contracted. So make sure that knee's at a 90 degree angle. Don't let that thigh come in past that hip joint as you raise that leg. Keep those abdominal muscles contracted, those hips rolled in. Nice tight squeeze in those abs the entire time. Now we're almost done. This is your last one right here. And slowly let it down and let it relax. You can let those abdominal muscles completely release if you want to. Otherwise, keep them contracted as we move on to our next level. So we're going to be doing toe tap level 2 on this one. So this is just a little bit harder version. If you find this to be too hard, you can always go back to the original version. So bring both those legs up to that tabletop. So 90 degree on that knee, 90 degree on that hip. Starting one leg at a time, drop it down this time, tap it, and bring it right back up and freeze. Alternate again, the opposite leg goes down, tap it, slowly back up. The breathing exactly the same. Exhale as that leg goes down. Inhale as that leg comes back up. The only difference is you're stopping or pausing at that tabletop position rather than with those feet on the ground. So again, check those abdominal muscles, make sure they're staying contracted the entire time. This is going to be quite a bit more difficult for those abs. So make sure you're constantly keeping that belly button pulled in. Don't let any space show up underneath that lower back. So those hips should be rolled in constantly. Just nice, slow, controlled motion. Exhale down. Inhale slowly back up. Other leg, exhale down. Inhale back up. Remember, never hold your breath. You're either going to be inhaling or exhaling the entire time. You're never going to pause at one point or the other. Just keep running through that mental checklist. Keep those abs tight. Keep those legs nice and contracted. 90 degree on that knee. Never letting that knee come in past that hip joint. Now again, we're almost done. 2 more in each leg. Keep those abs pulled in nice and tight. Lungs open. 1 more on the other side. Pause that tabletop for just a second. Then nice and slow, drop those feet down one at a time. Again, keep those abdominal muscles contracted if you can, if they're not too tired. Otherwise, let them release for just a second. We're going to be moving on to hundreds next. We're doing level 1 to begin with. This one, you're going to be crunching up just a little bit, feet flat against the ground, knees again around a 90 degree angle, arm nice and rigid. You're doing a nice quick pulse with those arms. 5 breaths in, 5 breaths out. So with this breathing, it's going to be exhale, 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 and then the same way, inhaling back in. You just want to make sure that you're taking a really nice small breath, making sure you're slowly filling those lungs up and slowly exhaling all the way back out. If you try to take a normal breath 5 times, your lungs are going to be full after the second breath, and the last 3 just aren't going to work. So make sure you're using just a really small breath every single time so you slowly fill those lungs up and slowly exhale them back out. So nice, slow, controlled motion. Again, keep those shoulders up as high as you can the entire time. Nice tight crunch on those abs, keeping those arms perfectly rigid. I don't want to see any limp wrists, no flopping of your hands. You want to have that hand in a nice straight line along with that arm all the way up to that shoulder. All right, so go ahead and let that one relax. We're going to be moving on to the next level for this one. This is a level 2. Bring those legs up to a tabletop. Just makes it a little bit harder for those abs. So go ahead and bring those knees up to that tabletop position. Go ahead and crunch those shoulders up off the ground as high as you can. Arm nice and rigid, and start up. 5 breaths in, 5 breaths out, timing them with those hands. So every time that hand drops down towards the side of that hip, you want to breathe, either in or out. Remember, 5 times in a row in, 5 times in a row out. Just keep those abs tight. Remember to breathe. Keep those knees at a 90 degree angle. Don't let those knees come in over top of your stomach. You want to keep them right on top of that hip joint or further out from that to make it a little bit harder. If you want to make it easier for you, if those abs just can't quite handle it, you can let those knees kind of come in over top of that stomach just a little bit. Otherwise, if you want to make it harder, you just push those knees out further away from you. Now, doing this exercise, a lot of people have a tendency for their neck to fatigue on them and start to cause discomfort. So if you have a relatively weak neck with this one, which is pretty common for a lot of people, what you do is you bring one hand back behind your head and do that pulsing with just one hand at a time. Just make sure you alternate back and forth. And let it relax. I think we've tortured those abs enough. So we're going to start working on that lower back and those legs. So go ahead and roll over onto your stomach. We're going to be doing a breaststroke next. Again, another 10 repetitions for this one. Now, if you want to do the slightly easier version of this, keep those feet on the ground. Otherwise, do what Kelly's doing here by lifting those thighs up off the ground as high as you can. Elbows tucked to your sides. You're going to exhale, dive forward with those hands. Inhale, draw them back, tap those thighs, bend that elbow. Then exhale, dive forward again. Nice big full range of motion. Try to get a big sweeping motion with those arms. Trying to really lift that chest up off the ground as high as you can. Contracting those thighs, squeezing through those glutes and that lower back to try to get those legs and chest up as high as you possibly can. Remember again, it's going to be exhale as you dive those hands forward. Inhale, draw them back, tap those thighs, bend those elbows, and then exhale, dive forward again. Nice big full deep breath in both directions. So a nice full exhale as you dive forward. Nice full inhale as you bring those arms back to that start position. Just try to make sure you keep that chest up nice and high. Try not to let it droop down towards the mat as you extend those arms out. Now that's actually our last repetition right here. And let it relax, nice and slow back down to the mat. Let that lower back release for just a second. We're going to move into our next back exercise, which is going to be focusing more on those thighs and those glutes. This is going to be heel taps. Again, 10 repetitions. So laying flat on that back. Again, come up to that arch position, bring those thighs up off the ground, tuck those elbows into your sides, tap those heels together twice, and then stretch those legs as far apart as you can. It's going to be exhale, exhale as you tap, inhale, pull those legs apart. Now, if you need to, you can let those hands touch down against the mat for a little bit of extra support so that back doesn't have to work quite so hard. But if you can, keep those hands hovering off the ground, make that back really have to work, make those glutes really have to work. We're going to do pulses with those legs out really nice and wide. Try to get a nice full range of motion. Try to get that thigh up off the ground the entire time, really squeeze them up. Make those glutes have to work, make that lower back have to work. Just a few more to go. Keep those lungs open. And let it relax. Drop those legs down, let that chest drop. And go ahead and roll over onto your left side for our first round of the 3-way side leg raises. So we're going to be doing 3 different positions with that leg. This really focuses on the outside of that thigh, and you're also going to feel it quite a bit in that butt muscle up in that hip joint. So laying on that left side, right hand on the ground in front of you for support. You're going to lift that right leg with that toe pointed down towards the other foot. So you want to try to keep that thigh rotated down as much as you possibly can. It's going to limit your range of motion, but it's going to focus on a different part of that outside thigh than you'd normally get if you let that toe open up. So keep that foot facing down towards that ground as much as you can. Really rotate that knee down towards the ground. Nice tight squeeze the top of that range of motion as high as you can without letting that toe point up towards the ceiling. Then nice and slow back down. Keep a little bit of a hover and right back up. Now this is primarily a leg exercise, so those abdominal muscles don't really have to do much. So force yourself to contract those abs, sucking that belly button in nice and tight, contract those obliques and that lower back. Just keep it all nice and tight. And hover it for just a second. You're going to turn that toe straight forward and start again. Another 10 repetitions. This one you should have a little bit more range of motion on, but again, try not to let that toe point all the way up towards your head or up towards the ceiling. You want to keep it straight across, so perpendicular to your body. That knee should be pointing straight in front of you. So try not to let it point down to the ground. Try not to let it point up towards your head. You want it pointing straight in front of that body. Just keep that motion going. Try to keep that leg under control as best you can. Trying to keep that angle under control. Again, keep those abdominal muscles contracted nice and tight. Keep those lungs open. No holding your breath. Which reminds me, sorry I didn't tell you before, the breathing on this one is going to be inhale as your leg comes up. Exhale as your leg slowly drops back down. Again, keep those lungs open. Nice, even, full, deep breaths. Now we're almost done. We have 1 repetition left. Tight squeeze the top, slowly back down. We're going to go to that last version. Point that toe straight up towards the ceiling. I know that outside thigh is just burning like crazy right now, but you have 1 more set to go. So toe pointed straight up over top of your head or towards your head. Slowly drop it down, heel first, and then point that toe up towards that head. Stretch up nice and high. Now this one should give you the most range of motion out of all 3. Try to get a nice big full range of motion out of it. Try to keep that leg perfectly straight. Again, contract those abs. Inhale as you lift your leg. Exhale as you slowly drop it back down. Just remember, keep a little bit of a hover between those feet and never let that foot touch until you're done with all of your repetitions. This is our last one on this side, on this leg. So keep pushing through it. I know it's burning like crazy, but that's where you're going to get your tone from. That's where those muscles are going to get nice and tight and solid. So make sure you're really pushing through it. Now we're almost done. Just 1 more repetition. Nice and slow up. Nice and slow back down. And let it relax. Now if you need to, go ahead and push pause right here. Let your legs stretch out a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to switch sides and go right into that opposite leg. So we're laying on that right side this time with that left hand in front for support and lifting that left leg. So remember, starting back over from the beginning, with that toe pointing down towards that other foot. Keeping that knee rotated down towards the ground, really rotating that thigh as much as you can. Keeping those lungs open. Inhale as that leg comes up. Exhale as that leg goes down. Keep a little bit of a hover underneath that foot. Never let it completely touch. Just nice, slow, controlled motion. Keep those abdominal muscles contracted nice and tight the entire time. Keep that leg perfectly straight. Constantly reminding yourself to keep that knee pointed down towards the ground, keep that toe pointed down towards that other foot to try to get that outside of that leg, the rear of that leg. Just keep those lungs open. Inhale up, exhale down. Keep those abdominal muscles nice and tight. Just one more. And switch. So toes pointing straight forward, foot level with the ground, knee pointing straight forward. Bring it up as high as you can without letting that knee point up towards the ceiling or up towards your head. Then slowly back down. Again, keep those lungs open. Keep those abdominal muscles contracted. Inhale as that leg comes up. Exhale as you slowly drop it back down, keeping a little bit of a hover in between those feet. And we're almost done. Just 2 more repetitions. It's your last one right here. Slowly up. And back down nice and slow. Keep it at a hover. We're going to move on to the next one. So point those toes up towards the ceiling. Roll that thigh so that knee points up towards the ceiling. This should be the biggest range of motion you can control on this one. So nice big full range of motion. Bring that thigh up as high as you possibly can. I know, again, that leg is burning like crazy, but keep pushing through it. This is your last set of 10. Make sure you keep those abs nice and tight. Make sure you inhale as that leg comes up. Exhale as it slowly drops back down. Just make sure, again, keep those abs tight the entire time. Keep those lungs open. Don't hold your breath. Again, we're almost done. Keep pushing through it. I know that leg's burning like crazy. You have just 1 repetition left to go. All the way up. Nice full range of motion. Slowly back down. And let it relax. Nicely done. Okay, you might want to pause it here. Let that leg stretch out. Otherwise, roll onto your back. We're going to move right into our next exercise. This is the prep, actually, for the exercise after this. It's just going to be nice and slow, walking up that leg. Exhale as you go up. Inhale as you slowly come back down. Really stretching out that hamstring. Again, nice and slow. Exhale up. Inhale slowly back down. One last time. Exhale on the way up. Inhale slowly back down. And drop those hands onto the ground. And we're doing small leg circles. So nice, small, about 12 to 6-inch circle. Going around. Exhale that leg down away from you. Inhale it up back to that start point. Just keeping in the same direction. Nice, small, slow circle. Count at the top of that range of motion. So we exhale down, inhale up is 1, exhale down, inhale up is 2. So pause at the top, switch directions. Nice controlled motion, contracting those abdominal muscles, pressing that lower back down into that mat. Again, 6 to 12 inches across in diameter for that circle. Trying to keep that leg as straight as you possibly can, pointing that toe, bring that leg over top of your body as much as you can with each one of those circles. And there's our last one right here. Pause it and bend that knee. Go ahead and let that leg drop down to the ground. We're going to do the same thing with the other leg. So starting with those walk-ups, straighten that other leg out nice and straight. Point that toe up towards the ceiling. Exhale as you walk up that leg. Inhale as you slowly come back down. Make sure you're keeping that leg as straight as you possibly can. Get a nice crunch as you go up. Trying to get a really good stretch on that hamstring. Stretch that leg. And go ahead and lay down flat. Hands flat against the ground. Starting with those circles. Again, 6 to 12 inches across. Nice, controlled, slow motion. Exhale down away from you. Inhale up across the outside of that circle. Just keep it going. Try to keep those hips as stationary as possible. Try not to let them roll back and forth. Pause it, switch directions, go back the opposite way. Again, exhale down away from you, inhale back up across. Make sure those abdominal muscles are contracted nice and tight, sucking that belly button in towards that spine. We're almost done, just 2 more repetitions to go. Last one, pause. And bend that knee, let that foot touch down, and let it relax. We're going to get ready for large leg circles next. So same exact motion, just trying to make that circle as big as you possibly can this time. Let's go ahead and get ready. Same thing, laying flat on your back, pulling that belly button in nice and tight. Starting back over with that left leg, get it straight up in the air. Nice big circle, down and out away from you. Exhale down, inhale back up. Exhale down away from you, inhale back up. Now the bigger this circle gets, the more it's going to be shaped kind of like a D shape rather than a circle. So you can be going kind of straight up from out away from you, up over top of that hip. And then you can be kind of a half circle down and out to the side, down across and lining up that leg with your body. So it's going to, like I said, it's going to look a little bit more like a D shape than it is a big circle when you're doing this one. Just keep that leg going completely straight. Nice big full range of motion. Again, keep those lungs open, belly button pulled in nice and tight. Exhale that leg down away from you. Inhale back up to that start position. And there's your last one in this direction, so pause it. Switch directions, back out the opposite direction. Again, exhale down away from you. Inhale up across. Nice big full circle on that leg. Trying to get as much range of motion of that leg as you can without rolling those hips. So you want to try to keep those hips completely stationary. Keep those abdominal muscles tucked in nice and tight. Pulling that belly button down to that spine, lower back flat against that mat. Just keep focusing on keeping those lungs open, breathing normally. Exhale down away. Inhale back up to that start position. And we are almost done. Just 2 more full circles. Nice and slow down. Inhale up across. 1 more. Bring it up to the top. And freeze. Hold it for just a second. And bend that knee. Let that foot drop down to the ground. Now we're going to switch sides and do the same exact thing on that opposite leg. Let's go ahead and get ready. Leg comes straight up above that hip. Make sure it's nice and straight. Start that motion. Nice big circle. Trying to push that range of motion as much as you can. Keep that leg straight the entire time. Keep those lungs open. Belly button pulled in nice and tight. Remember that breathing. Exhale down away from you. Inhale up and across. Really focus on trying to get a nice big full range of motion. Check those hips. Make sure those hips aren't rolling left to right. You want to try to keep them as stationary as you possibly can. All that range of motion should be coming from that hip joint of that leg only and not from that torso from rocking those hips left to right. So again, try to keep those hips nice and stationary, flat against the ground the entire time along with that back, getting a nice big full range of motion around that hip. Pause that leg and switch directions. Down away from you, up across, exhale down, inhale up. Just keep those lungs open, keep that belly button pulled in, keep that leg nice and straight. You've got a few more repetitions to go. We're almost done with this one. Just 2 more repetitions. Nice big circle. Got 1 more. Bring it up to the top and freeze it. Hold it. And bend that knee and let it relax. All right, we're moving on to hip raises next, also known as a bridge. So we're going to be laying flat on your back for 1 more of these. We're starting with both feet at the same time. Let's go ahead and place those feet flat against the ground. Pull those heels in as close to that butt as is comfortable. Contract those core muscles, then slowly lift those hips up as high as you possibly can. Get a nice tight squeeze on that butt using those hamstrings and that lower back to try to really push that range of motion. Then nice and slow, let those hips drop back down. Get a little bit of a hover over top of that ground. Just don't completely touch, then press it right back up. So the breathing on this one is going to be inhale as those hips drop down. Exhale as you press them up towards the ceiling. Now this position is pretty much the easiest way to do this exercise. If you want to make it a little bit more difficult for that core, you can bring those feet a little bit closer together. The closer together they go, the harder that core is going to have to work to keep you balanced. And you can also bring those hands up off the ground as well to make it a little bit harder for balance. It's just whatever version is hard enough for you to control, but still gives you a good challenge. Now no matter what version you pick, make sure you have those heels pressed into that mat, pressing up through those hips, trying to get those hips up as high as you possibly can. Get a nice tight squeeze the top of that range of motion. We only have 2 more repetitions to go, so keep it going nice and smooth. Keep those lungs open, keep those core muscles contracted, making sure you're trying to get as much range of motion out of this as you can. Your last one, nice tight squeeze. Slowly back down. And go ahead and let it relax. All right, if you want to, you can either go straight through using both feet still, or you can switch off to just one leg at a time. We're just going to do 5 repetitions on each side for this one. So if you want to do it with a single leg, you're just going to bring one leg up to either a tabletop or straight up above that hip, and then same exact motion, only using one leg to lift those hips. Just squeeze them up nice and high, slowly back down, same thing, a little bit of a hover at the bottom, then right back up again. Make sure those core muscles are nice and tight, make sure those lungs are open, making sure you're pushing all of your weight into that heel to squeeze those hips up rather than pushing it onto that toe. A lot of times if you try to push onto that toe, you'll have that calf muscle cramp up on you. So you'll make sure that your weight is in your heel so your calf isn't doing a whole lot of this work. And go ahead and switch those legs, do the same exact thing on the other side. Bring that other leg up, again, either a 90 degree on that knee, a tabletop position, or straight up from that hip. Now, when you're switching legs like this, you want to be really, really diligent about making sure you're getting those hips to the same height on each leg. You don't want to do one higher than the other, otherwise you're going to be imbalanced both strength-wise and range of motion-wise. So you want to make sure you're really, really diligent about making sure you get the same range of motion on that left leg as you do with the right. There's our last repetition right here. Squeeze it up nice and high, tight squeeze, slowly down, and let it relax. All right, that was our second to last exercise, which means we have one more to go, and it's going to be a seated straight leg lift. So we're going to sit you up nice and straight and tall, chest perpendicular to the ground, legs flat against the ground. We're going to do one leg at a time. Now place those hands back behind you on that mat to keep your chest pressed forward. Just lift that leg up as high as you can, as much range of motion as you can, but don't let that foot touch back down on the ground until all 10 repetitions are done. Do the same thing on the other side. Keep that chest pressed forward, nice flat back. Keep those lungs open, core muscles nice and tight. And let it relax. Good job. That was your last exercise, which means this workout is complete. Make sure you get a nice cool down and stretch in, and you're done.